Hey guys, welcome back. This is David, and today I'm going to go over two quick things, wireframes for preliminary site plans and a little bit of diligence specifically for a Unified Development Ordinance. And a Unified Development Ordinance is a little bit different than other ordinances, and so we're going to look at the ordinance, do a quick wireframe of a site. So let's learn. Okay, so let's get started. A Unified Development Ordinance is an ordinance that combines multiple things together, a lot of times zoning, land use, and subdivision regulations. And so what I usually think of is in a UDO, they're more likely to have regulations for different types of projects, and each type of project might have different dimensional requirements, whereas a regular zoning ordinance might just say you're this zoning, your setbacks is X, and your landscape strip is Y, and that's it. So in Roswell we have a UDO, and they have lots of different types of land use and different dimensional requirements for it. So in this example, this project that we're working on, it's already been determined that the zoning is CC, and so I pulled up Article 4 of the Unified Development Ordinance, and CC is here. We can look at some different building types and also what's allowed and maybe applicability. We'll just scroll down and we'll find it. So as I scroll down, I'm looking for the chart. There it is. So in CC zoning, we could do all of these different types of buildings, and this client wants to do two drive-throughs, some sort of quick serve restaurant, and a bank. So it's not going to be a flat, which is like an apartment. It's not that. It's not a commercial house. That kind of looks like a residential house, but maybe you use it for commercial purposes. It looks like it easily could be a single-story shop front. It can't be a mixed-use building because we're not going to have multiple uses. It's just going to be one thing. It's definitely not going to be a civic building, but it could also be a general building. So I'm going to go down and look at single-story shop front and general building and see what I can find. There's mixed-use building. So here's single-story, and I'll save you the hassle. I've already printed it out and looked at these two, general building. And they're basically identical with the exception that general building is 5 feet, and for CC, the build to zone is 5 feet or 85 feet, and the other one, the shop front, was 0 and 0 or 85 feet. And so what a build to zone means, you have to build it to that. You can't be in between. You got to either build it to 5 feet or you got to build it to 85. The closest you can go is 5, but then if you don't do 5, you got to do 85. So I know we're not going to put the building on the street in this location. We need to have a drive-through, so we need to have drives all the way around it. So I'm just kind of guessing we're going to go with this 85 feet thing. And the rest of these requirements are pretty much identical. So let's move this out of the way and start thinking about this site. So I didn't know what a Fifth Third Bank, how they had it laid out, so I just Googled it. And this is what I found. I found this site plan here. And so it looks like they have the staggered part on the back, a drive-through on this side, and then parking on this side and this side. So that's really enough for me to kind of give an extra 5 feet of sidewalk on either side, then do 18 feet of parking, and then 24-foot drive aisles. So you can see that's what I did. Here's that green space that was in that picture, parking, drive aisle, and then the drive-through is on this other side. I offset this by 12 feet because I know a car is going to pull in there, and then I left another 12 feet for bypass, and then I need to be able to get cars through here, and I'd like them to be able to get out here too. This is the drive-through, so people might drive this way, so I just did a 24-foot drive aisle. Now I had to squeeze this in. I want cars to be able to go this way to get into parking for the Chipotle, but I know there's already trees there, so I just left a 5-foot strip, and I just couldn't fit a two-way 24-foot drive aisle, so I just wireframed 20 feet there. This is going to be a one-way in. And then I took the Chipotle and I just wireframed off the sidewalk 18 feet, 24 feet, and 18 feet. And just offset it. And then off this um, drive through in the rear, I just offset another 12 feet so that cars can get past. So this really could be my curb line here. Um, we don't necessarily need this last line. So you can see this driveway is pretty close to that building. We have this driveway like right on that drive through, 5 feet away from that building. We have some parking, and then we're pretty close to this sidewalk over here. So, I mean, we really don't have much room, not even enough to make this a two-way. So I think that's kind of the best of both worlds. You can see we're violating this build to zone thing here. You know, theoretically, this should be kind of back like that. That just doesn't work at all. You know, we want to get a plan that fits. We'll just note that they're going to need a variance for that, and then we can start having conversations with the city, you know, as to whether or not they'll allow that. So it's okay to not meet every regulation, but just note it on there that you need to get a variance. So this needs to go on the color property layer, and the reason for that hatch being there, if we go to the preliminary site layers, it shows up and it basically blocks out the aerial. And then if we go to the site layer, which is CS and then S for site, it disappears. If you accidentally put this thing on like the site hatch layer, which seems like it could be, it looks about the same, that's wrong, because when we go to our site layers, it's still there and you have to deal with it. And we don't want to deal with it on our site plan. We only want it on the preliminary site plan because the aerial only shows up on the preliminary site plan, and we just want to block out the aerial so that our site pops on the page. So just make sure that this thing goes on the color prop for property layer. Okay, so initially I was thinking about doing this thing 90 degrees so that the parking was up front, and that actually would kind of line up a little bit better with this build to zone here, and I could have another row of parking there. But there's just no way this thing fits. You know, we're going way out here into the sidewalk. So I just decided to turn this thing 90 degrees, and we'll just ask for some sort of variance from the city, and we'll see what happens. So this is the basic wireframe. I'm going to put in a couple of these things so that we can kind of see what's happening. We're going to have one of those there. And then you can also see it's a little bit hard to see the drawing on top of the aerial. So we'd like to turn that off. But before we turn that off, I'm going to go over here. So you can see we've got this thing laid out in there. This is our main road. I'm going to move this thing just a little bit over this way so it's a little bit more even in that space, and select that. So we're not at a standard scale, so usually for these preliminary things a 20 scale works pretty well. So I'm just going to set that to a 20 scale, and then we're going to lock that thing, lock that viewport so we can't actually move it. And then we'll do VP rect for rectangle. And now we can see where this viewport is. I'm going to go back into geolocation, capture area, and go from there down to there. Leave a little space for that logo, a little space over here. I really want this thing as small as possible so that it doesn't download too many pixels and doesn't make your drawing really, really slow. So these two things I'm going to put on the aerial layer. And now I really don't need the aerial map. I can turn that off. So when I'm just on the site plan, I can do my drafting. I don't really have anything in my way. And then when I go to preliminary site, or PS, the aerial shows up and the hatch shows up. And when I'm on a preliminary layer, we can load our layers again with CSVP. And you can see that that gray is going to white out, block out some of this stuff. Here, notes related to variances, we're going to definitely need that. So I'm going to change that to by layer to remind me to think about that. Okay, going back to the site plan. All right, so we have almost a wireframe. We need a little bit more for it to be a wireframe. This is going to be a one-way here. These guys are going to be, one trick, you can set your UCS with Control-Shift middle button to this, and then you can just grab this thing, and when you have your UCS on, or your ortho on, it'll just snap and be perfectly aligned. So that one's going to be like that. This guy is really going to be a two-way. This guy is going to be a two-way, and that guy is going to be a two-way. And then this is going to be a one-way. So this will just kind of help us remember what we're trying to do when this thing is going along. And this is going to be a little bit funky here, but it's tight. We really don't have much choice. So you got one guy going this way, you got guys going this way, other guys going this way. If we can squeeze a little extra room, I'd like to maybe just put like a 3-foot striped area in between here. So maybe we just grab that and move them 3 feet that way. That's pretty close there to the building, the driveway, but now we have a little bit of separation there, which is good. And we can probably cheat this guy over this way another foot. Okay, you want to think of things in assemblies, and you can build assemblies together. And what I mean by that is I drew this 85-foot line off of this property line. I offset it because I know we were supposed to be 85 feet. And then I set this, I just sketched up this wireframe, set that ortho to the line, sketched up this wireframe, set it ortho to this line, and then I related them to with a 24-foot drive aisle. So all of these things are orthogonal to this line here. I could have picked the rear line too, but I know that usually Roswell's going to make you dedicate right-of-way 2 feet off the back of the sidewalk. So I'm pretty sure they're going to make us dedicate some right-of-way up here. So I think everything really probably needs to be lined up with basically that direction on the road. So all of this is basically one orthogonal direction with the exception of this. And so this road is basically an assembly, and we'll basically just blend this assembly into that assembly. So I like to group things together temporarily so I can move them as one. Then I can ungroup, and that one I think I had grouped it twice because I added some objects, and it's not wanting to ungroup. There it goes. And this one, I think that one's ungrouped. So what we can do here, get rid of some of these lines that we don't need. I'm just going to trim this off. That didn't work out well. I'll try the BB command. Okay, well, it worked there. Let's try it over here. This is kind of weird. We pulled this from a different drawing. It didn't come from our normal drawing. Okay. We don't need that, and we can kind of just trim some of this stuff off. Actually, this we could take out to there. When you get to the curb here, that's really going to end. This would basically wireframe into that, so we don't need that extension. This is going to be parking, that's going to be parking. Maybe I throw a little number in there to help remind me which ones are parking. We're pretty close here. I'd like to move this back if I could, but I really can't go much further back there. We'll stretch out this. I'm going to just go to the center of this drive aisle. It's a 24-foot drive aisle, so I'm going to go over 12. and this guy is going to go to there, and then I'll extend these to there, and then we'll figure out later how we want to blend those two together. There's that. We can actually fit a good bit of parking there, some parking there. So you can see this thing starting to take shape. We're going to need to have some sort of a jog here that, you know, might do something like this. Probably smoother than that. Yeah, maybe it does something like that. And then that would have to be offset down there as well. And then people could line up and pull in there potentially. Okay. And then we're going to have some drive-through thing here. Now we need to think about our drive entrances. We'll definitely want to keep that one there. Also, this McDonald's that's next door, it looks like a little bailout lane there, I think. Let's take a look at that if we can in Google Street View, and I encourage you guys to use Google Street View quite a bit, and it's a good way to get a sense of what's going on. Oh look, oh wow, it's actually a huge retaining wall, so there is no cut through there, so that's a good thing I looked at that. Okay, let's get rid of this, and then I'm going to trim that guy off like that and then just delete that. So I think we still probably want to do that. Also, when people get their food, then they can leave this way. We probably want this to be a 24-foot drive aisle. So I'm going to offset this by 24, and we'll leave it 24. Oh, my UCS is not set correctly. We'll leave that 24 down here, and then this will be 20 back up this way. We could really fit some cheater parking spaces there, so I'm going to do another 20, and we'll do some like angled parking this direction. We'll just draw a line to kind of remind us of that. And so this is going to go up to there. That's going to come out to there. This is our angled parking. And so let's think about what we want to do with this. I'd really like to have, feel like we need an entrance there, and I'd like to keep one here. I don't know if the city will let us. This is a private development, so we might be able to do it. So I think we'll try. So that will be our 24 there. We'll line that up. Then I'll use the BR command to break, and I'll break out a gap there. This would come out this way. We'd have an island there. Have some parking there and there. 2 drive-throughs, 1 bypass. Probably a line coming from the middle of that arc there. That's some striping. So, you know, now you can kind of see how this thing is shaping up. This is what we call a wireframe. There's nothing fancy going on there, but we know exactly how we want it laid out. And once you get a wireframe, from that point, you're kind of just drafting on autopilot. You're cleaning up corners, you're tying in things to one another. So at that point, you know, it just becomes easier. You can, you know, listen to some music, start drafting. It just becomes a little bit easier. The thought could be a little bit less. And so we're going to propose a little entrance here, and then we need a gap here, so I'm going to use the break command to put a gap there. We're going to need a break in here. Let's fix this arc. We're going to draw a line from there to there, and that is about, it's a 40. So I'm going to draw a new line there, and I'm going to draw a new line there, and then I'm just going to delete this thing. And then I'll put this line back. I'll fill it with a trim 40 from there to there. And that's not working. It says it's non-coplanar. So let's get these guys and let's put them all with 0 ends. I'm going to select a lot of this stuff, and we can double check the lines. Yeah, there's something weird in here that wasn't at a 0 elevation, so whatever that was, we're going to try to fix that. There's a 3D polyline somewhere. Oh, I bet that's what that line was that we pulled from some other drawing. Okay, so now that's a 0, and that's a 0. Let's go back and do this 40. And then we'll offset that by 12. Oh, maybe that was a little skinnier. What's that dimension? 10.5, so that was a 10. 10 there, and a 10 there. Okay, so now we have that back. I think I'm also going to take this and maybe just fill this with a 20. So you see now we're getting into a little bit more detail. That's going to be all striped area. And I want to rethink this a little bit. I'm not too happy with this because we have parking there. We need parking, but we also have this extra parking back here, so that could be good. But usually when you have a drive-through like this, usually this is drive-through lane and people stack up here and then they just pull in and go around. If we put parking here and people stack up here, they're probably going to be blocking. So I think I want to change that a little bit. And let me think about this a little bit more. I'd also like to line up these drive aisles. So I have two options, and I think I know which one I'm going to do. So let's say we did a drive aisle here. Create this. I'm going to recreate this arc. This was that 3D polyline that I took from another drawing. Okay, if I did a 12-foot lane there, then people could go this way and pull in. Then we could really do an 18-foot parking here, and then a 24-foot drive aisle there. And so this system, and you might have seen this some places, where you park and then you actually have like a crosswalk in between where cars are pulling up, and you walk between the cars and then go into the building. So that's a little weird, but it also lines up this drive aisle a little bit better. But what I don't like about this is that now I have to fit all of my parking here in between this drive aisle and then this drive aisle right here. So this could actually be a little bit longer, but if I flip it around the other way and I keep my parking out here, now I can extend my parking almost all the way up to the property line, and I can extend it out this way further. So I feel like we want more parking on the main side of the building. So I don't think I like this red option very much. So if I go back to, maybe I just put a 12-foot drive aisle, which is already there, and then a 24-foot drive aisle, and then an 18-foot parking space, 18 feet. And so, now I can fit some more parking in, which I really like. My transition's a little bit worse, but it's not that big of a deal. What we could do is we could do I like to use 20-foot radiuses a lot in parking lots. It's just kind of a good number. So we could take this guy to there, and then this parking could go out like that. And so you'd have an island there, and this would basically be like a T intersection into this road. And then it doesn't feel quite as weird. So that's actually a pretty reasonable thing there. So let's go with that. Get rid of this. We're going to have parking here. We're going to have a one-way there. We're going to have a two-way there. We're going to have a two-way there. We're going to have a two-way this way, but remember this one, the assembly is facing this direction. And we're going to have some angled parks here. And yeah, and I think that's a pretty good strategy. The way we'd want to do this here is there's no curb here, so we'd really need to make a new curb. And so that would go on our curb layer. And then we would tie in these two together. So maybe a 15, and then maybe another 15. And so that is what would become your face of curb. And then this would become a face of curb. So now, from this point, we know exactly what we're going to draw. We didn't waste time with anything fancy. And now we can just start improving it piece by piece. I'm going to take these things that I know are going to be my bordering curbs and, put them on that layer. Or another way I can do it is, that's actually not one. Grab that and then use CG and then match it to that layer. These are just kind of the border of the striping spaces, so it's really, this line will go away. But a lot of times I like to put it on the striping layer and then just put stripe X8. This is one of my favorite line types right there. And then that makes it look a little bit more like parking. So I'm going to leave this here, and then this can be finished up later. But just want to give you a brief overview of what looking through a UDO or an ordinance is, and looking at some of the dimensions, and then laying out a wireframe. A wireframe is really simple. Then it takes discipline to stick to just offsets and keeping it simple. It's very easy to go down a rabbit hole of making a nice radius here and making another radius and just getting this cleaned up. But you need to have some self-control and restrain yourself from doing that. You just keep it as a rough wireframe until you get the entire thing wireframed. Take it to the project manager, have them approve, give feedback. Once the wireframe is approved, then you just clean it up from there and finish it off. And so that's it for this quick session. Thanks so much.